Let's talk about Dover here. Audio only, so I'm sorry about that. But hey, you can put it on as you're driving to work, as you're driving home from work, if you're going on a walk, if you're going to the gym, if you're buying groceries, whatever the case is, or if you're just on a computer, open this in another tab, continue to do whatever you're doing and just listen to me talk. Let's talk about Dover. Going to talk about what I think is going to happen, how I want to approach this week. Not going to talk about Xfinity in this one. I'm pretty sure I'll do that tomorrow, and then we can go of how I want to approach it, or at least the drivers that I want to try to approach and try and build in line. So first and foremost, this is just me kind of spitballing, midweek and everything. I believe that Dover is going to go green. I am very much banking on Dover going green. And, this is really the first, look, it's a mile track. However, I view it very much as an intermediate track. Last year and the year before, I've slowly come around to looking at Dover and Charlotte performing very similar to each other. And so, in my opinion, I want to use this week for two things. One, I want to play the guys that I think are going to be fast in this race. And two, I want to view this race as a test for Charlotte in terms of what these drivers are going to do. I want to say first and foremost, before I forget, that I really believe Joe Gibbs is not diversifying their lineups or their setups enough. Joe Gibbs this year seems like they're approaching the track with all four cars set up relatively the same. And when you look back at last year and what they did specifically at Dover, and that was really, Dover was the first time last year they were like, whoa, what is Joe Gibbs doing? They are way off pace. And we're seeing it again this year to where Joe Gibbs as a whole is just arriving to the track with a setup that is very similar between all four cars. And if that setup is going to be close, then they're going to be running top 10. If it's not going to be close, then you're going to see guys running poorly. I just want to mention that first and foremost. And I'm saying that because, like I said, in my mind, I'm using Dover as really a beta test for what I want to do for the 600 in May. And I think Dover, at this point in the season, it's going to be the first, real checkpoint to look back on and see how guys performed and see how guys did on the long run in the first and so on and so forth there. Secondly, in terms of going green, in my opinion, the way this car is running, I think now that the drivers have had a chance to run this car at drastically different tracks and drastically different situations, I think we're going to see caution start to go down. And my main point for that being is, right off the bat, this year started off pretty crazy. Clearly, we had Daytona. We had Fontana, to where this was just absolutely throwing these guys for a loop. Yet again, never heard it, but the main point of it is that the guys just didn't know where the slip angle was between the tires and the car, or the tires and the surface they were racing on. It was just, this, and you heard it this year. It would just come out from under me. It snuck up on me, and yada yada yada. Well, now we've been racing quite a bit, and we've been running short tracks where that stuff's going to be a lot more aggressive. You're able to learn where you can put the hammer down at this track. So let's look back. Fontana was a insane race with tons and tons of cautions. We get to Las Vegas, and I think in my mind, Las Vegas would have gone green to the end. And the main reason I'm saying I think Dover's going to go green is because we need to aim for stage 3. When we're looking at how to build lineups, second point, I'm trying to get everything out before I forget it, because it's the first time just recording, not really writing anything down, just speaking as I go through. I'm at a point where I'm probably going to keep 20 max in each and every week for the 15. So at least that's, in my mentality, that's how I want to approach this week, of just trying to nail the main lap leader and then the secondary lap leader, and just trying to build lineups that cater around the guys that are going to be running on the lead lap late in stage 3, or not even late in stage 3, just having a chance to lead in stage 3. Because I fully believe that we're going to go green in stage 3. I think we're going to see a green flag pit stop, and I do believe that there's going to be a chance that we don't have a lot of yellows here at Dover. Going back, the reason I think that is when we look back at Las Vegas and the Pennzoil 400, sure, it got a little crazy. Okay, I understand, we have the incident with Cole Custer being spun down the back straightaway. We have the second incident on the back straightaway. We have Reddick spinning out turn 4 by himself. But when we look specifically at once the guys got an understanding of what the car was going to do, everybody was racing. They got it all out of their system, the wrecking and being stupid. We have green flag pit stops at Vegas. we finished green flag pit stops at Vegas, so pit road played a huge role in this race. There's only a few guys who didn't pit, and it was because Denny Hamlin was stalled on the apron of turns 1 and 2 when he blew the transmission out leaving pit road. And we had a long run of 47 laps in this race, and that really spread out. If you're able to nail the guys who led laps in that race, you were there. When we're looking at the schedule, clearly we had Phoenix, we had Atlanta, Austin, Richmond, Martinsville, and I mentioned this, when we started April, and really, we haven't had a real race since Las Vegas in terms of an intermediate track. The short tracks and road courses go very much hand in hand, and specifically Richmond and Martinsville, that's going to be great to look at when we get to Gateway, when we get to Sonoma, when we get to Loudon in, June or July, either one of those dates. Those are the tracks we want to look at. When I'm speaking right now, I want to look at the guys who were, I'm sorry, I'm all over the place today. I swear I'm getting back on the wagon, don't worry. My main point is, I think Phoenix would have gone green in the end without the Hamlin incident. We saw these guys are not spinning out at Richmond and Martinsville, which in my opinion, that shows that, hey, these guys are getting, everything under their belt. Even though, Richmond traditionally goes green, but when we look at Dover has traditionally, had longer runs at the end of this race, and really the only way that we get a yellow in these races are when we're having single car incidents, pretty much right off the restarts, or debris. When we look back, and specifically, I really do think that this race is going to play out like the race did in 2020, of when we just have, maybe an early incident or an incident off the restart, and then we just end up going green in stage 3 and stage 2. With and even when we're looking back at the other races, 2020, the second race in 2020 had, the end of stage 2, and then we had Landon Castle, Quinn Half, spin out 5 laps into a run off of turn 2. We had another restart, and then the 32, my bad, going back. Yeah, we have the end of stage 2, Quinn Half spins 5 laps into the run, and then we have a long green flag run. Then we have a yellow on lap 290. What is the yellow? It is Corey LaJoie spinning in turn 3. This is around the time that we're looking at green flag pit stops, around the time that we're looking at these tires being worn in. Around this time, because when we look at the amount of laps that you're most likely gonna lead is where are we at here? Stage 2, 119, 193. We're most likely looking at the runs being anywhere from 60 to 70 laps. I'm looking specifically at at the instance of Corey LaJoie spinning in 2020, bringing out the yellow on lap 290, just being pushing the tires, being we're getting into green flag pit stops. So the reason I'm saying this is because I want to primarily focus on the guys who I think are going to be up front. When we look at the races this year and where these guys are going, I'm mainly looking at the real rating here. I think it's a very easy way to look at it. I understand that we're looking at races from Las Vegas and from Fontana, but we're really seeing the same guys be up there. We even look at Phoenix if you want as well. But I'm not going to look at Fontana. I think Fontana was an anomaly, and the guys that were up front in Fontana, you still see up front in Las Vegas. We just end up having the yellows at Fontana that I think make guys look like they ran better than they should have, or than they did, because they were up in the top 20, mainly due to being under yellow or holding their position so much under yellow. Whereas Vegas, at least you had a long run, and I trust the numbers from Vegas a lot more. But when we look at guys who were up in the front at Vegas, it's the same guys we're talking about left in and left, week in and week out. Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson ran 55% of his laps in the top 5. Actually, if I rank it by top 5, we'll focus on the three highest guys, and that's Ross Chastain, two highest guys, Ross Chastain and Alex Bowman. Everybody else are the names that you kind of expect to be up there. You know, you have Truex, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Kyle Busch. When we expanded to start looking at the top 10, and this is why I like what Pearce has done here when we sort by percentage of laps ran in these positions, because you can look at the lap by lap data and see where these guys are running, you know, see what instance, see where they are in terms of long run, and then see as a whole, you can rank them by how many laps they were in the top 5, top 10, yada, yada, yada. When we look at top 10, you know, Ross Chastain, 95% of his laps in the top 10. That's a guy that I want to focus on. Entering Dover, you know, Kyle Busch. And the reason I brought up the whole Joe Gibbs bringing cars as a whole is because I really want to see what Joe Gibbs is doing in practice. I'm really on the idea that I said of I think Joe Gibbs is bringing, you know, very similar cars to the track, and if we don't see speed from practice out of these Joe Gibbs cars, I'm not very interested in them. I understand, man. If you're looking at track history, you're like, oh my God, you got to play Martin Truex Jr. You got to play the guys who have been up there. You know, Martin Truex Jr., you know, where's Kyle Busch at? Where we at? Busch. You know, even Busch has been kind of, mainly Truex is the main guy that I wanted to mention there. With that 19th place finish last year, mainly being, I think, I got to move on. I'm talking about this too much. Anyway, you know, when we look at Vegas and the guys running inside the top 10, it's really the same guys that I mentioned for the top 5. You know, Chastain, Byron, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson then really shows his face between running in the top 10. You know, when you start looking at, you know, the mid-range plays here, guys that are running inside the top 20, the guys that we want to try and focus on our, you know, I'm assuming what's going to be our little value range this week, because when we look at Dover, and the reason I think it's going to go green is one of the reasons that I think we need to look at with it going green is the amount of cars that are going to be on the lead lap late in this race. I'm pretty sure that the leaders are going to probably lap up to 17th or 16th. And so when we're looking at how these guys have ran this year in terms of their percentages, I want to try and kick guys that are legit going to be running in the top 15. I'm very concerned about value plays, you know, that are going to be running 21st, 20th, getting trapped a lap down and not being able to jump ahead of other guys. Clearly, it's gonna the qualifying procedure is gonna trap guys that are top 10 cars starting 11, 12, 13, 14, 15th. We've been mentioning that all year. I like the idea of playing those guys this week, and I like the idea of playing the guys who start in the top 10, whom I wouldn't argue, you know, really contending for a ton of fast laps or a ton of laps led. But if somebody starts 9th, for example, and I think they're going to run 11th, 12th, 13th all day, maybe get some fast laps here and there, I'm much more leaning towards that type of play than chasing a value play that, say, starts, you know, 25th or something that ends up finishing 24th. I think qualifying is really going to, let me change that. I think where you start in this race is really where you're going to end up running, based on the fact that you're not going to be able to pass in this car. You want to talk about dirty air. You want to talk about not being able to pass on you know, at Phoenix, at Martinsville, at Richmond. I understand those are short tracks, but still the point remains the same. Is, look, Dover's a one groove racetrack. That's how it is, okay? Once we get through the initial restart, the initial 2 laps of restarts, well, then you just run single file. And if you have the faster car, you'll be able to get under somebody and pass them. Not even necessarily like you need to physically move them out of the way, but this is a place where your momentum is huge. Okay, one of the main reasons why I do enjoy Dover a lot is because it's very much a setup and a driver type of track. You have guys that just feel comfortable running this style of racing. And so when we're looking at guys starting inside the top 10 this week, that might not be lap leaders, I think they're going to be able to outscore the value plays and outscore guys that might be similarly priced that are starting in the back that look like better plays based on place differential, but where I don't think they're necessarily going to work out this week. So focusing on guys that are going to be running inside the top 20, focusing on guys that are not going to be stuck a lap down, and focusing on guys that I think are going to be able to have a good day on pit road is the teams that I want to focus on. So as we continue to move forward, let's look at Phoenix here. And look, I understand this is a short track, but I do want to look at the guys who have maintained a top 5, top 10 running position. Chase Briscoe won the race on pit road. We all talked about that. I think this is gonna, as I just said, I think Dover's pretty much going to be a track position type of race, and Chase Briscoe checks those boxes of a guy that is going to be at least in the top 20, top 15. Chastain again, showing up in the top 5, top 10, top 15. You have Reddick, which I didn't even mention at Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure Reddick was also running, well, let me look real fast. Reddick was inside the top 20, half of the laps inside the top 15, 40% of the laps inside the top 10. So at least a top 20 play at Las Vegas. But Reddick's up there. Blaney's running up in the top 10 all day at Phoenix. We have Harvick, who, when we're looking at Harvick, a guy that I want to look at how he does in practice. I know I mentioned, Martin Truex Jr. having the track history and trying to put that in perspective of what might happen and really bailing out the 19th place finish last year. As I said, this racetrack very much fits in the hands of certain drivers. Some drivers feel extremely comfortable here. Other drivers do not. Martin Truex is a guy who feels extremely comfortable here. Harvick is a driver who feels extremely comfortable here. If Harvick ends up having a salary based on, a $9,000 play, $9,200, $9,300, somewhere around there, I'm not opposed to playing Harvick this weekend. Just based on, I think he can run inside the top 10, top 15. Same thing with Logano. 79% of his laps in the top 10 at Phoenix, 100% inside the top 15. When we look at Chase Elliott, 94% of his laps in the top 15, 89 in the top 10, 82 in the top 5. Alex Bowman, 98% in the top 10, 98% in the top 15, 57% of his laps at Phoenix inside the top 10. And a lot of this stuff was based on pit road. We know that, that's the only time places were made and changed on pit road. That's what we want to see. The guys that are able to get those positions and at least able to hold on to it. Entering this week, William Byron, 99% of his laps in the top 15, 90% of his laps in the top 10 at Phoenix. Austin Dillon, we're seeing him be good on pit road. We're seeing him and Reddick showing speed this year. 98% in the top 15, 67% in the top 10 at Phoenix. When we start moving forward, I'm not going to look at COTA specifically, but Richmond, a track that was green, that was based on pit road, you're going to see the same guys that I mentioned at Las Vegas, that I mentioned at Phoenix, being up there. The main contender that showed up late in this race due to pit road strategy is Denny Hamlin. Ran 94% of his laps in the top 15, only 57% of his laps in the top 10 in this race. Kevin Harvick, 96% in the top 15, 81% in the top 10. When we look at William Byron, 93% in the top 15, 66% in the top 10. We're still seeing the same guys. Martin Truex Jr., 97% of his laps in the top 10. Kyle Larson, 84% of his laps in the top 15, 49% in the top 10. First time that I've mentioned Christopher Bell here, but really, like I said, that Joe Gibbs idea or approach of we're either going to be great as a unit or pretty piss poor as a unit. Christopher Bell, 89% of his laps in the top 10. We get to Ryan Blaney, 100% of his laps in the top 15, 96% of his laps in the top 10. When we look at Alex Bowman, a guy that we have mentioned at Las Vegas, really didn't mention a ton at, I may have mentioned him a ton at Phoenix. Let's look. Phoenix, Bowman was at 98% of his laps in the top 15. When we go to Richmond, Alex Bowman has 56% of his laps in the top 15, 76% in the top 20. Kyle Busch, 80% of his laps in the top 10. When we continue to go down, Tyler Reddick, at least bare minimum a top 20 driver, 99% of his laps in the top 20, 57% of his laps in the top 15, 8% of his laps in the top 10. Chase Elliott, 77% of his laps in the top 15, 57% of his laps in the top 10. So the reason I'm saying all this type of stuff, because this is a race to where, optimally speaking, we're going to need the highest lap leader, who is most likely, let me just look at one thing real quick. the trimmed out situation does concern me. And before I even get the questions of, oh, do we play the pull sitter? Do we not play the pull sitter? Yet again, I'm 20 maxing. I'm most likely going to have ownership to nearly every one of the top 6 starters because I do believe that the lap leader is going to come from there primarily. However, this is a race where I'm concerned about the guys who start 1 and 2 being too trimmed out in traffic. When somebody maybe gets under them or in front of them, they're not going to be able to get in front of the other people. And as I'm talking right now, they have the salaries out for Xfinity. I'm assuming for Cup as well. I'm not going to waste time doing a live reaction to that. You'll just hear what I think this weekend. Anyway, continuing on, it's really the same guys that we've been playing week in and week out. It's the guys who have been showing speed. It's the guys who have been fast this year. I'm very much interested in Ross Chastain, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin. We can argue a bit with Larson. Trying to think of the other main lap leaders that I want to try and get on. But right now, I really do feel like it is going to be a Alex Bowman, William Byron, Ross Chastain type of week right now. Once we move on from there, in terms of where I want to go in terms of value, just due to the fact that I think I'm going to at least have 3 guys over $9,200. I doubt I'll be in the 8K range a lot. When we get to the 6K range, I'm going to lean on practice speeds. And I honestly want to lean on starting position and not in the place differential way. I want to play guys who I think are going to be able to hold their position the entire race. So if we have, let me try and think of a situation we might run into, or at least an example. I think Stenhouse might be like 7,200. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. We're gonna look at the pricing here real quick. Since I am talking a little bit about salary, let's look. Larson 11.8. I think that's a bit overpriced. Probably won't have a lot of Larson. Chase Elliott 11.3. I don't know why the other guys aren't higher. I like Byron more at 11,000. Alex Bowman 10.1. Probably too cheap for me. Truex Jr. 98. That's too cheap. Same thing with Hamlin. Harvick 9,300, about where I thought he would be in. I think Harvick is going to be a very interesting play this week. Same thing. Would like to see. This is going to be a really fun week to build a lot of lineups because I absolutely love Chastain at 86. I love Tyler Reddick at 88. I love Kyle Busch at 91. I think they really are kind of overreacting to Joe Gibbs. And like I said, look in practice. If Joe Gibbs is there, if they're being fast, I'm going to be interested a lot in Joe Gibbs. If they're not going to be on the table for me. I don't think Larson is going to be my primary play from Hendrick Motorsports. Continuing on, I'll most likely be playing like Cindric, 7,300. Seems like a really interesting play for a guy that I think will start inside the top 15 and ride inside the top 15 all day. Eric Almirola, $6,600. I'm very interested in that. Busher started inside the top 15. I'm going to be really interested in that. A. Allmendinger, probably going to be a trap place differential play. I'm not a fan of that. Same thing with Custer. Depends on where he qualifies, what he shows me. Don't like Dillon. Not interested in Pearce. Probably not going to do Haley. Dillon is probably going to be the chalk there. I think Harrison Burton can be a very interesting pivot. I think Harrison Burton is underpriced. Let's look at Harrison Burton really quick at where are we at here? Let's do Vegas. How did Harrison Burton do at Vegas? 83% of his laps in the top 25, 27% of his laps in the top 20. Not going to work. I don't like that. Based on this one race, let's compare that with McDowell. McDowell was even. McDowell and Burton are very much identical plays. BG at $4,500. Bit interesting. What has BJ been doing? 50. BJ ran 50% of his laps at Vegas in the top 5. 0 in not top 5, top 30, my bad. What did he do? Did 0 at Phoenix. 1% in the top 30 at Richmond. Which I would have been actually pretty shocked if he would have done more. Oh, he had an engine issue at Martinsville. I forgot about that. It's very interesting, man. I really like pricing this week. I think it's going to be very easy to build a line. Very easily looking for me being a 3 type of lap leader type of week. I don't even necessarily think you need Larson. I don't think Larson is going to show up and be the fastest car right off the bat. Let's look at Larson specifically. Let's try and knock some holes into the Larson play. We'll go back to Fontana. So, sure, Larson wins Fontana, but we have a ton of wrecks, tons of yellows, a lot of restarts. Ends up taking a lot of the faster cars out that were in front of him. When we look at Larson only ran 54% of his laps in the top 5, 80 in the top 10, 92 in the top 5, 96 in the top 20. Did Larson start in the rear? It doesn't. 13th, 25th, 22nd, 19th, 19th. I don't think he did. I think he just started deep. When we look at Vegas, Larson runs 55% of his laps in the top 5, 78 in the top 10. When we look at Phoenix, why am I looking at Phoenix? Brandon, why are you wasting your time looking at Phoenix? I just want to get an idea. I'm not leaning on like the Phoenix and Richmond data all together, but I just want to see where these guys are kind of running this year across the board. Are they kind of running similar? Actually, I forgot. He blew a motor. 32% of his laps in the top 5, 65% in the top 10. Richmond, 16 in the top 5, 49% in the top 10. There's a real same thing with Elliot. Actually, let's take a look at Elliot real fast. You want to do Fontana? We'll do Fontana too. Let's see. Let's find Elliot. What happened to Elliot in this race? Did he get in a wreck? I don't remember. He was running 3rd, then he fell down the 2nd, finished 2 laps down. But anyway, Elliot, 26% in the top 5, 32% in the top 10. Las Vegas. And if you want to look through these laps, if you want to also look through this stuff, I'm going too fast for you or whatnot, you can join the Patreon and you can look at the lap by lap data. Where are we at, Elliot? Las Vegas, 31% in the top 5, 66% in the top 10. I don't know what this pricing is based off of. I really don't. Byron is probably the best of the most expensive guys in my opinion this week. You can argue Ryan Blaney and Logano, but I like Byron, I like Bowman, I like Truex. I like Hamlin, Harvick, Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, and Chastain. I don't know if I play much of Larson and Elliott. I'm sure I'll have them. I'm guessing because they're probably going to start in the top 10. Even if they don't start in the top 10, if they start in the top 15, I'll probably end up having 20% Larson, 20% Elliott. But I love the 9K range this week. I think the 9K range is awesome. I think the 10K range is awesome. I think Byron's underpriced at $11,000. So it's very interesting that they priced him that way. I'm really looking forward to practice and qualifying on Saturday. This is going to be a fun race. So kind of wrapping up, I think this race goes green. I think we need to lean on the guys that we've been playing week in and week out. The guys that are fast are going to be fast this week. This is very much an intermediate track. It's very much a testing session, in my opinion, for Charlotte. Maybe not even just for DFS-wise, but for the teams as well. And this is the stepping stone. This is really the first point in the season to where we can really pinpoint where guys are in the intermediate package in this car here at Dover this weekend. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with me through me being out of town and through this video. And I will see you guys probably in the Xfinity show that I'll record tomorrow. And then obviously in the live shows this weekend as well. If you want to support me, support Pearce, support the work that we do, you can join the Patreon in the link in the description below. You can do that. I think it's on the 1st. Well, it is on the 1st. But I think it's this weekend. Well, that's taking too long for me to bring up. I think it's on Sunday. So, hey, Sunday comes around, Sunday morning. If you want to check stuff last minute before the race, you could join the first, get access to this week, and then get access to 5 Cup Series dates alone in the month of May. Adding that on to all the truck, Xfinity, and even F1 races, May is a really, really good month to be kind, join the Patreon, and get access to all the things that we do here. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you this week in the live shows.